Hi, and welcome back. If you're new to the channel, welcome to my channel. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you always get your notifications every week when I have brand new sequences coming out on Sunday. And also, welcome for joining me for today's yin practice. Thank you for taking the time to slow down. It's just as important to keep our life balanced when in our workout, in our physical part of our life, as it is in our other areas of our life, as in home and work. And sometimes it's just as important to take an hour to slow down. And you might find that taking this alternative to your practice, having a yin practice along with your vinyasa flows with more movement and more activity, you may find more improvement in your range and mobility overall. Also, with holding in stillness in these slow practices, you'll also find an added element of stress relief and mental health relief, just because it takes that time to be fully within the moment, and finding the stillness is just something that we all need to practice on in our life. So, when you're ready, I am going to use a couple of blocks in the practice. Not necessary. You can totally do this without blocks. And also I will use a black blanket. This is just for my purpose because I had a nasty little fall a couple of weeks ago. And so I need a little bit of extra padding for my knee. Great use if you also have knees that like to give you a little extra feedback during your practice. So when you're ready, we're going to come to a nice seated position, crossing the legs. Just coming to the center of the mat, and either leg in front of the other. Just make sure that you're comfortable. You can sit up on your blanket or even up on a block if it feels better for your hips. And we'll just start by grounding. Maybe close the eyes. Allow the hands to rest gently on the knees. Palms can be facing down or facing up, whatever your flavor is today. And we'll just begin our slowdown. Starting to ground into the mat. And beginning to turn our awareness to our breath. With a normal yin practice, we don't try to control the breath. We observe the breath on the inhales and the exhales. And we take note of how it travels through the body. Perhaps on the inhale you feel it traveling along the spine, going through the length of the back until it reaches the tailbone. Maybe as far as the hips and the top of the legs. On the exhale, we feel the lungs empty. Maybe the shoulders get a little bit more heavy. Maybe you feel yourself settle into the posture a little further. We start to notice what part of the lungs we're breathing into. Does your breath travel all the way down, filling up the belly? Or maybe your breath is more shallow. And you feel like you're starting with a more quicker pace at your breathing today. Wherever you're at, no judgment. We're just here to observe. We'll take 3 more breaths. And on the next inhale, you can blink the eyes open if they were closed. And we'll get started with a deer pose. The first deer pose will begin with the right shin aligned with the long edge of your mat. And then we'll move the left shin so that it's in line with the bottom edge of the mat. And here I like to have a block because there is a tendency in deer pose to, of course, shift to one side. In this case, it would be towards the right hip. Sometimes having a block sitting to the right and the hand resting on it will allow you to stay seated upright and to feel just a little bit more balanced in the spine. And we'll start in this upright position and hold for a couple of minutes. As you do so, just take note of the hips, any difference you feel between the left and the right. And of course, we're working on external rotation of the right hip and then internal rotation of the left. This sensation can already cause the brain to have a little bit of maybe a miscue, or just think, what is going on in the lower body? And that's where we return to the breath, because we want to stay here in stillness. And as we hold here in stillness, we use the breath to relax and to deepen. Now you are welcome to stay in an upright deer position. If you would like, you can join me in a deer twist. And from that, we'll start to turn towards the right side. This would be the top of your mat. You can stay upright, nice and tall, or you can also lower down onto your forearms. As you begin this twist, remember, we are still breathing. A lot of times when there is compression, as we make a twisting movement, there's also a tendency to hold the breath. And we want to avoid that holding sensation. We want to send the signals to the body that it's okay to release and let go. The muscles need some time to relax. And once the muscles relax, then we can deepen even more into the joints and the ligaments, that much more plastic parts of the body that resist movement. To come out of the twist, we're going to start to push into our hands and lift up back to that upright position, coming back into our upright deer. And then place the hands behind the hips, start to lean back. And you can bring the feet up together. And we're going to take a few windshield wipers, just allowing the knees to move from left to right. I'm just feeling the rebound effect after holding that pose for several minutes. Noticing any changes or how anything feels at this point. And when you're ready, we'll come to stillness. This time we'll take our deer on the opposite side. So now the left shin is going to be parallel with the long left edge of your mat. And then the right shin will be parallel with the top side. Again, from here, we're going to start in that nice upright position to feel grounded and to become stable in our deer pose. Starting out the posture in a very tall position, so the crown of the head is still reaching up towards the sky and you're feeling straight through the spine. Your right hip will have a tendency to lift off the mat, so it most likely won't be directly seated onto your mat below you. But we want to cue the hips with the breath to release. So if you're feeling any gripping within the hips, maybe in the quads, take a moment to take some nice inhales and exhales. And see if any tension can just let go. Now, if you find that you're struggling to let go in the upright position, you may want to stay here to explore that in depth a little bit longer. But if you do like the twist, you're welcome to join me now as we twist towards the left. Maybe walk the hands out, perhaps lower all the way to the forearms. You can allow the head to be heavy as we enjoy this little twist. To come out of the twist, again, use your hands to push yourself upright. Take your time. And we're going to bring the hands back behind the hips once more and do a few more of those windshield wipers, noting any sensations that we're feeling traveling into the hips. Wonderful. And we're going to prepare for our half butterfly. So we'll extend the left leg out long and then draw the right foot to the inside of the left inner thigh. And then I like to have a block just to the outside of my left leg to feel supported and so that I'm not initially just forcing myself into the pose. We'll start with a side body lean over towards the left. So we're not going directly onto the or above the left leg. We're going to start with the side body lean. So you can take the left forearm, bring it to the block, and you can rotate the chest so it faces the sky. So we're just leaning just a little bit to the left And you can keep the forearm on the block. You can also bend the arm and maybe settle the head into the palm of the hand. And for the right arm, feel free to drape it over the top of the head. I understand that this can be quite intense, lifting the right arm and having it above one's head for an extended period of time. It can cause tingling. So if that's too much, just bring the right hand and maybe just take a hold of the left shoulder and have it settle in front of the chest like so. We're focusing on keeping the right hip grounded and getting a nice stretch throughout the right side body. So if you can just continue to keep the chest rotating upward and trying to get a little bit of sunlight on the chest, that's a bigger movement or intention to move towards than having the arm over the head. So whatever feels good for you. And if you want to try extending the arm and then moving it down, you can do that as well. Settle in, find your depth in the pose, and then search for stillness using the breath. So come out first. If your right arm was lifted, let's just lower it down to the leg. You can use the left arm to help push yourself up. Come up to an upright position. Let's pause here for a moment. Take an inhale, exhale. Feel the shoulders relax down the body. One more. And on the next inhale, we're going to place that right hand out, maybe just a little bit further out on our mat. And we're just going to side body lean over to the right this time, and then draw the left arm up alongside the head, just like we did in the last position. If this is not your choosing for your arm position, again, just bring it across the chest and have the left hand take a hold of the right shoulder. You can stay up on the right hand, or you can also lower down onto the right forearm. Keeping the left leg glued to the mat. And we're just going to hold this for about 5 breaths. And when you're ready, you can release the upper arm, bring it along the side, push into the mat with your right arm to come back to an upright position. Pause in the center, inhale. Exhale, relax. We're going to switch it up. This time, draw that left foot in to reach the inside of the right inner thigh and extend the right leg out long. If you're using the block, this time it'll go to the outside of that right upper leg. We'll start nice and tall. And then you may have a difference between right and left as far as how much you lower. It's totally normal. You may have differences in your postures between right and left. As you go to the right side, maybe start out with the forearm on the block. Focus on rotating the chest up towards the sky, and then side body lean towards the right. That left hand taking across the chest or drape against the head for a little bit of support, and holding here. Imagine the left hip feeling very heavy. So you still feel that intention, that connection with the mat, with the earth. Remember to return back to your breath. Once you feel that maybe you're riding your edge, finding your breath will allow you to stay in stillness and to hold the pose. Never allowing ourselves to come to any pain or sharpness in the pose. On an inhale, we're going to slowly rise up, pause in center. And then we'll begin with our side body. Lean over towards the left side. Lower down onto the forearm if you would like. Keep the right leg planted. And then draw the right arm up overhead, if that's your jam today. Otherwise, you can cross the right hand across the chest. This feels like sunbather's pose to me. Just kind of being open up to the sunlight, keeping that chest shining up towards the sky. We'll take about 3 more breaths here. And when you're ready, if your right arm was lifted, go ahead and bring it down alongside your body and then push into the mat with the left hand to bring yourself back to an upright position. From here again, if you want to take a couple of windshield wipers with the legs, you're welcome to do so. That is a long pose both for the hips and for the side body. And when you're ready, we're going to come over into a tabletop position and prepare for our puppy pose. I'm going to use my trusty blanket so I can have a little extra padding onto my left knee. And we'll come into our tabletop just to get started. Just checking the alignment, especially so the hips are directly over the knees. Because from here, we're going to start to walk the hands out for a nice long held puppy pose. Now this puppy pose, we're just going to keep the right arm extended and then bend the left arm. Let the forehead rest onto the back of the left hand and lower down. The chest feels heavy, so the chest starts to reach for the mat. You feel supported because you have the left arm drawn in, but maybe opening a little bit more deeply into the front of the right shoulder because you have that support. Remember, these changes to poses are not, it does not diminish your capability. It actually allows your body to perform better. Being supported with any type of modification or using our amazing props, especially yoga blocks. I'm a big fan of using blocks throughout both my yin and my vinyasa practice. Remember, as we hold these poses for several minutes, there is, of course, that lengthening, the extra opening within the fascia and the ligaments. So because of that lengthening, there will be a slight wobbliness, a kind of a weakness when we come out of the pose. So that's why I always say, please move slow and carefully. And we're going to start to come out of our puppy pose. And this time I want you to press firmly into that left arm because the right shoulder might have a little bit of that weakness going on. And we're going to walk ourselves up. So we come into a upright kneeling position. Pause here. And then maybe interlace the fingers behind you. We're going to go for a little shoulder stretch, just reversing it out. Then we'll draw the knuckles down, lifting the chest up towards the sky, and then maybe pulling the knuckles away from the body. Inhaling in, releasing it out. One more. Slowly release the clasp of the knuckles. We're going to come back into that tabletop. We'll take the puppy pose on the opposite side. So this time we're going to walk the left arm out straight and then have a nice bend into that right arm and rest the forehead onto the back of the right palm. Take a moment to find your edge, to use any props that feel good. And then feel the chest sink heavy and the front of that left shoulder start to open. You can just allow the belly to relax. And if you feel ready, again, this time we're going to push using the right arm a little bit more than the left, since the left arm might have a little bit of that weakness going on. Push up, come through tabletop, and we'll come back to kneeling again. Taking it interlace of the fingers, maybe having the opposite thumb on top, just for a little different sensation. And again, we'll just stretch out the front of those shoulders, draw the knuckles down, away from the body, lift the center of the chest up towards the sky. And when you're ready, we're going to release the clasp. From here, let's take the hands down. We're going to tuck the toes and push back into a downward facing dog. And since we're here, we can go ahead and just walk it out for a moment. Downward dog always feels good, especially if it's maybe our first one for the day. Walking out the legs, maybe shifting the hips from left and right. And when you're ready, we're going to step that left foot forward. Bring it all the way up to the outside of the left hand. And then lower the right knee down for our baby dragon. So you can stay in your baby dragon with the hands planted on the mat. If you feel really open already in your practice, you can start to lower down onto your forearms as well. And if you would like a happy middle ground between being up on your hands and down on your forearms, you can also have your forearms on blocks. Again, props are an amazing thing to make sure we allow ourselves to use depending on how we're feeling in our body. We're going to hold here in our baby dragon for about 2 minutes. So about 10 to 12 breaths. And that's an average. So if you're thinking that my breaths are not exactly that long or that short, know that we're all different. So if you need to maybe slowly come out a little bit early, you're welcome to. Just do your very best to hold the pose and to come into stillness. Find your depth, because that's where you're going to make your small bits of progress, especially when it comes to mobility. And another big factor for keeping yin in your practice along with vinyasa is you really have all of this time to focus on your breath. And as you are more aware of your breath, you may find that over time your breath starts to lengthen. The longer exhales, we start to stay within the breath a little bit longer. All those are very, very good, healthy practices for our nervous system to reenact that rest and digest part of our nervous system, to slow down. If you were lowered down onto your forearms, come up onto your hands, and we're just going to take a little twist in our dragon. If you would like, you can also stay low on your forearms if you want. But twisting it out, we're going to come onto the outside knife edge of the left foot. Maybe bring the left hand to the inner left thigh and just rotate the chest to look up towards the sky. This will automatically come into the hips a little bit more deeply. This is a very, very strong pose. Start to unwind your twist. Maybe place the foot back down onto the mat. Tuck that back right toe. And then we're going to push back into our downward facing dog. Again, we'll take a moment in our downward facing dog, especially since we have had all of that deep movement into the right and to the left hip. Walking it out. A little bit of a yang movement to our yin practice. You remember, we can still have movement. Our focus is finding the stillness once we're in the pose. And when you're ready, we're going to step that right foot up to the outside of the right hand for our dragon pose on this side. Either staying up on the hands or maybe coming to blocks or all the way down to your forearms. And if you need to start higher and then move lower as the body sinks into the pose after a minute or so, that is always welcome as well. We do want stillness, but if you find that your body is inviting opening the longer that you're in the pose, then we can start to take it back to our edge. You can either stay in your variation of dragon, or if you would like to join in on the twist, return to your hands and then come to the outer knife edge of that right foot. Twist. Start to look up towards the sky. You can take the right hand to the inside of that right hip. Feel the hips sink a little bit more closer towards the mat, like a magnet is drawing them down. And again, as we're in this position too, think about the shoulders staying away from the ears so we're not collapsing within the shoulders. When you're ready to unwind, we'll bring the hands back to the mat. Step back that right foot, tuck the toes, and we're going to come into a downward facing dog just for a moment. Walk the hips, walk the feet. And then we'll slowly lower onto our knees. And we're going to snake our way down onto the mat and come into a Sphinx pose. And just pause in a Sphinx pose here for a moment. I'm going to move my blanket. In our Sphinx pose, have the elbows just slightly in front of the shoulders so they're not too far back. There should be a little space between the elbows and the chest. Lift up through the heart center. And next, we're going to use our Sphinx pose to help position ourselves for the next asana, which is cat pulling its tail. It can be a little different to get into. We're going to start by bringing the right forearm to a diagonal, almost so that it's pointing at the top left corner of our mat. And then we're going to shift so that we come onto the outside of the right hip. I might have to move my mic here. And now, from this position, we're now on the outside of the right hip, almost like we're going to do a supported side plank. But we're going to bend the back right toes in so they come closer towards the body. And maybe we draw the left knee up and in. If you can, take a hold of the back right foot with the left hand. Go ahead and reach for it. You could also use a strap. And then you can keep the left knee bent. That's the knee that's in front of you. Or you can also have it extended out straight. Whatever works for you. The other option to come a little deeper into cat pulling its tail would be to lower down onto the back of the right shoulder. So now it's almost like we're in a reclined twist, but you have this variation in the leg position so that maybe you're taking a hold of that right foot with the left hand, and then the left leg, it can stay bent at the knee. You can even use the right hand to hold on to the outside of that left thigh, almost like you would in a reclined twist, or you can extend the left leg out long. And we're going to hold it here, your version, whether you're up, maybe supported upright on that right forearm, or maybe you're lying on your back so that the shoulders are touching the back of the mat. This is a very deepened variation of a reclined twist. So if it is too much of a twist for you, feel free just to come into your regular reclined twist, starting on your back and then allowing the knees just to drop over towards the right. As you can tell in these practices, I love to offer variations. That way you have plenty of choices. I understand it can be really hard. We're not all at the same level, and even from day to day, our bodies do not perform the same. So we may need something a little bit different. Remember to keep breathing in this twist. Often that's where we lose the breath. We're going to slowly release the grip that we had on the legs, and then start to roll back onto our stomachs. Coming back into our Sphinx pose, we're going to pause just for a minute. Maybe rock the hips from left to right so you can find that evenness settle back into the body. And then when you're ready, we're going to take that same movement over to the opposite side. So let's use that left forearm as a kickstand, pointing the left fingers up to the top right corner of the mat. We're going to roll onto the outside of that left hip. And then maybe bend that left knee. Start to draw the left toes in towards the glutes. And maybe bend the right leg, also bringing it up more towards the chest. If you can, take a hold of that back left foot with the right hand. You can totally stay upright, supported with the left forearm. If you want, you can take the twist deeper. And again, this is much deeper by coming onto the back of that left shoulder, spinning around. So now our chest is really just facing the sky. And then grabbing that left foot with the right hand. Maybe taking the left hand to the outside of that right thigh, applying a little bit of weight, a little counterbalance as we hold our twist. The right leg can be bent or it can be extended out long. Maybe you're limited in your space like I am. So I'm going to have a bend in the right knee for today. You may be noticing this is also a really good quad stretch. I know I can really feel it today, especially with the things that I have going on in my left knee. A lot of times if we have knee issues, those knee issues tend to travel up the leg into the quad, which reaches our hip. And then our hip likes to reach into our low back. And we get a whole plethora of sensation going throughout the body. And we need to work our way through that sensation to get some relief. And sometimes that means we need to slow down and work on those areas little by little. We're going to slowly release and come out the way that we came in. So rolling back onto the left side, Coming back through our Sphinx pose. Again, finding our alignment in Sphinx, so maybe rocking the hips from left to right. And then reaching the chest up. So you feel the shoulders sinking away from the ears, and you feel nice and proud in your beautiful Sphinx pose. From Sphinx, I have one more pose that we're going to end our practice in today. Let's draw the hands underneath the shoulders, come back up to a kneeling position. I'm going to grab my blanket to pad my knee again. And from here, we're going to come into a frog position. Now, frog is one of those poses that is very intense because it works the inside of the thighs and the hips, and it's just not something that we do in a normal day-to-day practice. So, you can go side or facing the front of your mat like this, or if you would like to face and have yourself position on the long edge of the mat, you can do that as well. Whatever works for you. I'm going to go this way so I can have my blanket off to the side a little bit, but we're going to start to walk our knees out more widely, going until you start to feel a good stretch to the inside, those inner thighs and groin. Really feeling it into the hips. You can certainly stay up tall on your hands, or you can use a couple pair of yoga blocks and lower the forearms down onto those as well. But keep in mind, we want to have the knees in line with the ankles, so you have a nice 90-degree angle there. And then we're going to just hold in our frog position for about 10 to 12 breaths. This is one of those poses that I think we all love to skip. It is very much a struggle to endure this pose in stillness. But just think, if you are here and you are staying with it, you are in this practice, you are using your breath, you're still breathing. Congratulate yourself because you've come very far. It doesn't matter how far you get towards the mat with your glutes. We want to feel that sensation on the inside of the thighs. So also, while keeping that nice position from knee in line with the ankle, maybe give your glutes a little push back, like they're pushing towards the back wall. And I bet you're going to feel the inside of your thighs start to light up a little bit more. With a very, very small movement, you can make big change. We're going to very slowly come out of this pose, probably even more slowly than we've come out of our other poses. To ease your transition out of frog, start by bringing the ankles inward towards each other, and then shift the hips forward just slightly. Then use the hands to push into the mat, and then fully come out of your frog pose. From frog, we're going to spin ourselves around and come onto our back as we close out our practice in a short shavasana. Extend the legs out long. Allow the feet just to fall open. Hands can come out to your side in a nice low V, or you can also have your left hand at heart center, and maybe take the right hand to the belly. And we're just going to end our practice much like we began, feeling our breath travel down through the body. This time maybe you can recognize the inhale traveling all the way down to the feet. Can you feel that energy reaching your toes? Do you feel yourself connected even more with the mat? Allowing the hips, the back of the legs, the back and the shoulders to feel heavy, supported. Remember, you can always stay in Shavasana as long as you like. When you are ready, you can start to move the toes, perhaps move the fingers. Draw the legs in, coming to a seat. However it feels best to you, rolling onto your side, maybe rolling up in a ball. And we're just come back to the center of our mat, where we started, in a cross-legged position. Sitting up tall. We're going to inhale the hands up to the sky. Bring the palms together and draw them down through heart center as we close our practice for today. Thanks for joining me in this full body yin practice. I'm sure you felt it in many areas today, and your lower body and joints are going to be loving you. As always, hit that subscribe button so that you get some notifications when we have new practices every single week, and have a great day. Make it a good one. Bye.